From the studios of Farm Journal Broadcast, this is AgDay.
From farmer to president to peacemaker.
A hard-working farmer who championed conservation and clean energy.
The nation pays tribute to Jimmy Carter. What farmers need to know about SNAP benefits.
It's just a smart investment, not just in people, but in our ag economy.
And it appears workers will remain on the job at East and Gulf Coast ports.
I'm very appreciative that the two sides were able to come together on a full contract.
The damage a strike could have done to ag exports right now on AgDay.
AgDay is brought to you by Pioneer.
Ben's bins, please hold.
Yeah, Ben's has been busy all day.
Seems like no one can keep up with this new Z series. What did you all put in these seeds?
Science.
Good morning, I'm Clinton Griffiths. A strike at East and Gulf Coast ports appears to have been averted. The International Longshoremen's Association Union and the U.S. Maritime Alliance of ports and shipping companies announcing they had reached a tentative agreement for a 6-year contract. The two sides had been facing a January 15th deadline. AgDay's Michelle Rook joins me. Michelle, ag groups are breathing a sigh of relief right now.
That's right, Clinton. The verbal deal must still be ratified by employers and the members of the International Longshoremen's Association. However, the agreement was finalized ahead of the January 15th deadline, averting a potential strike that could have disrupted major U.S. ports and cost U.S. farmers and ranchers an estimated $1.4 billion a week. A finalized agreement with the longshoresmen at the East and Gulf Coast ports is great news for agriculture, especially the meat industry, as exports of chilled and frozen meat are shipped via refrigerated containers.
With the level of exports, on the pork side, 45% of the waterborne exports are going through the East Coast and Gulf, and about 30% of the beef, of which on the beef side, some of the higher value chilled business is going through there. So obviously any snafu in supply chain is a problem.
Hallstrom says the reliability of exports is also a cornerstone for expanding U.S. trade, so the deal was key.
I'm very appreciative that the two sides were able to come together on a full contract. And very appreciative of the fact that there will be no disruption and that we can continue to focus on the business. And as we all know, the business has been growing and has a lot of potential growth in the future.
The U.S. livestock industry cannot be harmed without hurting soybean and grain farmers, but a strike could have also impacted soybeans, soybean meal, and other ag product exports. In 2023, 5.8 million metric tons of soybeans were shipped via containers, and half of it was through those ports.
Our bulk exports would not have been impacted by a strike or a lockout. But what would be impacted are containerized exports of soybeans or other agricultural products. And, looking at about 5 to 6% of total U.S. soybean exports occur via containers from those potentially impacted ports, again, along the East Coast and along the Gulf Coast.
So he says a labor deal was in the best interest of American farmers. Details of the agreement won't be known until the ratification vote occurs, but it seems the contentious issues surrounding automation and technology were resolved. I'm Michelle Rook reporting for AgDay.
All right, thanks, Michelle. A mixed report in the latest drought monitor, the latest map showing some improvements in the northern part of the country, while the south saw an increase in drought overall. Right now, just over 36% of the nation is in drought. That's down slightly from last week. There was widespread precipitation throughout eastern Kansas, Missouri, along with the Ohio and Tennessee valleys, on into the central Appalachians and mid-Atlantic. Now, some areas saw more than a foot of snow. Right now, the southern plains and lower Mississippi Valley are dealing with snow along with rain and freezing rain. Meteorologist Jack Van Meter is tracking it for us.
And this system that we're talking about, again, that pretty much formed in northern Texas and southern Oklahoma, causing a widespread slew of issues. We're talking freezing rain, snow, and of course some heavy rain to our south is actually going to be moving on Friday to the east coast there. As I put this in motion, it's actually going to be following a very similar path to that first system that we talked about the beginning of the week. But by Saturday morning, system should be exiting. Most of it actually will be moving out into the ocean, and pretty much the northeast going to be dealing with some light snowfall. And then on Sunday, actually watching another system that's going to be dipping down from the north, giving folks up there another burst of snow. But this time, not as much snow is going to be expected out of that system. And behind that, another Arctic front, which we'll talk about in a little bit. And ranchers in Texas have been preparing ahead of this Arctic blast. We get this picture from the Texas Farm Bureau member Clint Rutledge sharing this with us. He says the bitter cold wind, snow, and ice will not stop the ranchers from providing care for their livestock. Well, I'll have more coming up.
Dry, windy conditions continue to fuel wildfires in the Los Angeles area, but firefighters started making progress on Thursday, in part because ferocious winds that have been driving the flames have slowed. Better weather could provide an opportunity for firefighters to rein in the fires that have hit communities from the Pacific Coast to Pasadena, causing tens of thousands of people to flee their homes.
Everything is just gone, and I just want to wake up from this bad dream.
Nearly 2,000 homes, businesses, and other structures have been destroyed in those blazes, and the number is expected to increase. One of the fires, the Palisades Fire, is already the most destructive in Los Angeles history. USDA is expanding its testing of milk to try and prevent the spread of avian flu. APHIS announcing 15 additional states have joined the National Milk Testing Strategy. That brings the total to 28 states, which covers nearly 65% of U.S. milk production. New states added include those in a light shade of gray on this map. The agency reports recently H5N1 detections in dairy herds in California and Texas, but testing to date in this strategy hasn't identified the virus in other states. Now, it's reported over 110,000 samples have already been tested by USDA labs. It's always fun to kick off the new year with the newest innovations from the Consumer Electronics Show. Well, earlier this week, we told you about John Deere's new autonomous retrofit kits. Also on hand to roll out a host of new innovations, the Kubota company. Take a look at this. It's called the AgriConcept 2.0. It's an electric tractor powered by AI, automation, and an electric powertrain. They also rolled out a smart autonomous sprayer that can scout for pests and spray with precision. Kubota also winning a CES Innovation Award for its Catter Robots. It's a four-wheeled, all-terrain robot that maintains a level cargo deck while working on uneven surfaces. It can run autonomously or remotely. There are also new products to monitor plant health, capture plant images, a smart robotic pruner, a new hydrogen-powered engine, and an autonomous zero-turn mower. You can read more over at KubotaUSA.com/innovation. Cattle markets surged again on Thursday, while grain trade was more tepid. We'll talk markets and prices coming up next. And later, our friends at the Packer are putting context around the SNAP program for Fresh Produce Fridays. Cattle was once again making gains on Thursday after Wednesday's losses. AgDay's Michelle Rook has more on where things could be heading today with the release of several key reports from USDA.
Row crops and cattle to the plus side on Thursday. Allison Thompson joins us with analysis. Corn and soybeans. Let's talk about that first of all, maybe some positioning ahead of the reports. But what do we need in those reports here today from a bullish standpoint to keep the market going? How much is priced in already?
We've been kind of trading the headlines that we're expecting in the report ahead of it. We've been trading it since we've hit the harvest lows. And in corn, that was back in August. And since then, we've rallied about $1 on these headlines, potentially lower yield here in the U.S. and strong demand. They have definitely bumped up the price. So markets are going to need to see something fresh, an extremely bullish report if we're going to see markets break to the upside here. On the soybean side, obviously lack of demand or lackluster demand has definitely set back prices, and we've struggled to make new highs again. So we're going to need to see really good demand numbers tomorrow and probably a production cut as well on soybeans if we're going to see markets continue higher. But with that being said, I think a lot of the trade estimates are what the market has been trading here for the past couple of months. So at least if we do get a report that is somewhere near estimates, I think markets should remain pretty supported.
Good. And then after that, we're going to go back to trading South American weather.
I have a feeling so. If we aren't going to be getting a big surprise in the report, the market's going to be quickly going back to South American weather. And we're in a time period here where we're going to watching it very closely. They really need rains within the next week to 10 days. And so forecasts, obviously, over the weekend can definitely change things early next week. So if we don't get any changes in the report, I think any weather changes over the weekend, early next week, are probably going to have the bigger impact on prices here, at least in the short term.
And a nice recovery in cattle chasing another week of record cash here.
Yes, obviously the cash market remains strong, and that's keeping that market resilient. So I think we could see it continue higher just based on what cash does, but we're going to need to see the cash break to really see a correction in this market.
Thanks so much. That is Ellison Thompson with The Money Farm. We'll have more Ag Day coming up. Watch Markets Now with Michelle Rook on the Farm Journal YouTube channel, keeping you updated throughout the day on the markets at the open, midday, and close. Find out what moved the markets today and what to expect the market to do next.
Taking a look at our current snow depth, we can see, again, the big system that moved through at the beginning of the week. The snow is actually still going to be on the ground, and we can see that trail spanning all the way from parts of Kansas pretty much through the Virginias, especially in West Virginia, getting a nice taste of snow early. That being said, we are going to be looking at this new system, which has already started to leave some heavy snowfall for southern portions of Oklahoma and northern portions of Texas as well. We're talking around Dallas, already seeing right around 3 up to 6 inches of snow. But for the rest of the country, later on this afternoon, we're talking from Arkansas eastward, not that much snow, pretty much a dusting all the way up to maybe 3 inches of snow is going to be expected from, again, portions of Arkansas all the way up through through Tennessee and portions of Kentucky, and obviously part of Indiana and Ohio as well. And that's going to be leaving pretty much the forecast on Saturday. Now, we are still keeping a very close eye on the situation down in Southern California. The fire risk today is just going to be elevated. So each day we have been seeing a decrease in the forecast of severity for the fire weather out there. Today, just looking at winds 20 to 30 miles an hour sustained, but more importantly, the gusts are down to right around 40 miles an hour and 50 miles an hour. So we're starting to see the system wind down, and hopefully this gives firefighters enough time to battle the blazes out there. And finally, taking a look at our temperature outlook, especially for the middle half of the month, we can see for the western part of the country, below normal temperatures will be persisting, and actually not that bad, maybe by a degree or two. Let me step off the map real quick, and we can see a very different story for the southeast, where they'll be actually 5 to even 10 degrees colder than average. And Scottsville, Arkansas, 39 degrees and a low of 17 degrees. Going to have some snow in the morning. Green Lake, Wisconsin, 28 degrees and a low of 12 degrees. They're going to be seeing some sun. And finally, Jordan, Montana, 40 degrees, low of 32 degrees.
Congress is taking a look at the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program. We'll have details on that conversation next. And later, a nation says goodbye to a former president and Georgia farmer in the country. There's talk in Washington about cutting SNAP benefits and increasing the program's work requirements. Now, SNAP is short for Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program. Christina Herrick of Farm Journal's The Packer talked with a leader from the Alliance to End Hunger about the importance of the program to people in need and farmers.
There are 47 million people in the U.S. who are food insecure, and that includes 14 million children.
The Alliance to End Hunger is a Washington, D.C. based coalition of corporations, nonprofits, faith-based organizations, universities, foundations, and more. Delgado said the SNAP program is a monthly supplemental grocery benefit for low-income households.
When you break it down per person per meal. So SNAP served most recently about 42 million people with an average monthly benefit of about $211 per person per month, and that's about $6 a day or $2 per meal.
Delgado said about 75% of SNAP participants live at or below the poverty line, and the majority of those in the SNAP program receive Social Security benefits. And about 80% of those SNAP households include a child, an elderly individual, or a person with a disability.
When you look at the folks who are using SNAP that are able-bodied without dependent children, those work requirements are even more stringent. For those who can't meet the work requirements in that category, able-bodied adults without dependent children, they are limited. If they're not able to meet work requirements, they are limited to 3 months of SNAP out of 3 years.
Delgado said it's important for the agriculture industry to continue to discuss the benefits that programs such as Double Up Bucks, the Senior Farmers Market Nutrition Program, WIC, and the Gus Schumacher Nutrition Incentive Program have in helping increase access and consumption of healthy food and produce.
National Farmers Union is a member of the Alliance to End Hunger. They very much support SNAP and oppose restrictions to cuts to the SNAP program. So we know that farmers are already involved in this fight. And so we would just encourage them to continue to advocate for a strong farm bill that strengthens the ability of farmers to produce the great food that they produce, and the ability of folks who are food insecure and hungry to be able to access those resources. For the healthy incentive programs like GusNIP, for every dollar invested in a healthy incentive program where folks have more access to fruits and vegetables, that generates $3 in economic activity. And so it's just a smart investment, not just in people, but in our ag economy. And so I think that that's really should be the focus of our advocacy.
All right, thanks, Christina. The largest supplier of oranges to Florida's Tropicana company says it's stopping production. Alico Incorporated owns more than 53,000 acres in 8 counties across Florida. The company says it has faced increasing financial challenges from citrus greening and other environmental factors like hurricanes for many years. Alico says it has decided not to spend any more money on its citrus operations once this year's crop is harvested. It is planning to convert a majority of its land to other crops, with about 25% going to commercial and residential real estate development. Alico says it has been the state's leading citrus producer for more than a century, but has seen production fall 73% in the last 10 years. Up next, saying goodbye to a fellow farmer and a former president, a memorial for Jimmy Carter. Next. From farmer to governor to president to international peacemaker, yesterday the nation paused to remember former President Jimmy Carter, who passed away last month in Georgia.
Throughout his life, he showed us what it means to be a practitioner of good works and a good and faithful servant of God and of the people. And today, many think he was from a bygone era. But in reality, he saw well into the future. A white Southern Baptist who led on civil rights. A decorated Navy veteran who brokered peace. A brilliant nuclear engineer who led on nuclear nonproliferation. A hardworking farmer who championed conservation and clean energy. The president who redefined the relationship with the vice president.
Mr. Carter was honored with a state funeral Thursday at the Washington National Cathedral. He started life as a peanut farmer from Plains, Georgia, before becoming America's 39th president in 1976. He was the oldest living former U.S. president and the first to reach the age of 100. He was laid to rest on his family's land in Plains, right next to his wife, Rosalind, to whom he was married for more than 77 years. And that's all the time we have this morning. We're sure glad you tuned in. From all of us here at AgDay, I'm Clinton Griffiths. Have a great day on the Farm Country.